more about Donald Trump. Let's talk about Donald Trump and so many things that he's doing. Let's talk about his immigration overhaul. The Trump administration issued two new implementation memos that they're trying to add clarity to the U.S. policy towards illegal immigration that the president laid out pretty incomprehensibly, right? His memos, his executive orders on immigration were a train wreck. Courtesy of Stephen Miller, his minister of truth. But in an attempt to correct the record or to bring clarity, he's implementing the president's border security, and it's actually entitled, rather, implementing the president's border security and immigration informants improvement policies and enforcement of the immigration laws to serve the national interest. There are two different memos that he sent out today. These guidelines called for several things. Some of the key points that you can find on the Department of Homeland Security fact sheet with regard to this. Number one, under this executive order, with extremely limited exceptions, the Department of Homeland Security will not exempt classes or categories of removing aliens from potential enforcement. All of those in violation of the immigration laws may be subject to enforcement proceedings up to and including removal from the United States. That's number one. Number two, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CPB, and U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement, ICE, will release aliens from custody only under limited circumstances. So they essentially are ending catch and release. Number three, the CPB will immediately begin to process the hiring of 5,000 additional Border Patrol agents, as well as 500 air and marine agents and officers. Number four, the Department of Homeland Security will immediately identify and allocate all sources of available funding for the planning, design, construction, and maintenance of a wall, including the attendant lighting, technology, sensors, as well as patrol access roads and development requires, and for total ownership cost of this project. So this is take two. And this is as being reported by several outlets, but particularly the Washington Post. This is take two. This is act two in his attempt to crack down on illegal immigration. The irony of it is something that we've discussed several times. You're going to have to go hard. You're going to have to be so draconian to outdo what President Obama was already doing. And this is what Donald Trump has a necessity for. He absolutely, based on his language, he makes it seem as though President Obama was relaxed on illegal immigration and was too easy on deportations. Well, deportations reached an all-time high in 2013. 434,000 individuals were deported that year alone. I mean, you're going to have to go hard in the paint, Trump, to outdo President Obama. And this is essentially, it's hard to imagine how he's going to outdo, right? Really, it really is going to boil down to the shock and awe approach of the CPB and CBP rather, and ICE, and their approach and the promotion and marketing of their efforts, because this stuff was going on while President Obama was in office. It just was flying below the radar. But with Donald Trump, this is a badge of honor for him. So for the Obama administration, it was something, they were carrying out the laws. They were deporting people by record numbers. I mean, 434,000 people alone in 2013. But it wasn't something that was highly publicized for the general public. So Donald Trump's approach is, we're going to make it loud, we're going to make it proud, and make sure that everyone sees it. This doesn't mean that he can't find a way to escalate. We see that he's going to go forward with the wall. He's going to spend this money. What they said, it's going to take how many years and how many billions of dollars to build this wall. But he's determined rather to go ahead with that. In contrast, this is where you can find the distinction between Obama and Trump. Obama in 2014 announced that he was going to be deporting felons, quote, felons, not families. Well, Donald Trump is kind of moving away from that. He's deporting anybody and everybody who falls underneath these new memos that he has released. The number of people deported in 2015 was just over 330,000 people. And that's the lowest year since 2007. So every year, hundreds of thousands of immigrants and illegal immigrants have been deported. I mean, have you seen the images of how we detain them? I mean, if you look at the images of how we treat illegal immigrants in the United States, it looks something like detainment camps. I mean, it's horrible. And yet we have to do more to pacify the lust of Donald Trump and his sycophants who believe that the number one problem in America is illegal immigration and sanctuary cities, right? Because as Stephen Miller said, we all know, or we don't know, he posed it as a question so he could get away with this little tidbit of propaganda. He said, how many parents are mourning the death of their children in sanctuary cities? Well, I think we can actually count that number. But however, moving on. So there's approximately 11 million people in the United States right now who are illegal. If your goal and your desire is to take 11 million people out of the United States economy, not only good luck with the ramifications, number one, but number two, good luck with the logistics of actually making that happen. The Department of Homeland Security last week floated a memo that suggested that in order to accomplish this goal, they were going to nationalize 100,000 National Guardsmen. The Trump administration has subsequently rejected that or denied that. However, the memo actually turned up, and it did come from the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. But I guess plausible deniability. They didn't want to seem as though they were going to go that far. So during the campaign, Trump said that he thought that there could be as many as 30 million illegal immigrants. And he said, nobody knows what the number is. Again, I don't really see practically how Donald Trump is going to do more to outdo what President Obama was already doing. I mean, look at the numbers. Millions. And Obama deported millions of people. But because Donald Trump has to distinguish himself, it's likely he'll probably deport the same amount of people, but just make it far more publicized and far more draconian in their approach and instilling fear into people and the crackdowns, the very public crackdowns, and taking people from public places, taking them from churches. They raided a church last week to take some, they're really going about this in a way to make him look as though he was strong on illegal immigration and to make it seem as though President Obama, when both of them and pretty much all of American presidents, I guess, except for Reagan in recent years in the modern history, have been, extremely hard on illegal immigrants. But we have to have a scapegoat, don't we? Yeah, that's how we do in the United States.